Senator Udall, thank you for spending some time with us on the VA right off the top. What happened here?
It's a pleasure being with you.
I appreciate that. Good to see you, Senator. What happened with the VA in your view? If you peel it back just a generation or so, what's the fundamental problem that's going on here?
Well, first of all, I think they probably have a systemic problem. If you look at how they've been dealing with veterans, we've had a tremendous backlog in terms of disability claims. Over the years with inspector generals, we've seen complaints in terms of scheduling and not getting in quickly enough. The other side of the coin that I think is an interesting one, though, Gene, is that many of the veterans that get their care are very happy and acknowledge that it's a good system. And so you have to balance these two and say, how do you get to this systemic problem and do something about it? And so you have that there for a number of years. Then on top of that, you have 2 million young men and women in Afghanistan and Iraq who serve the country. You know, very small percentage, but tremendously important to our country and giving to the country and patriotic. And they're now coming home in very, very large numbers. And so you take a system which has been having problems in the disability area, and been having problems in these other areas, and then you have huge pressure with additional people coming in. And so if you ask me, I would identify those two things. I'd say it's kind of a systemic problem, and you have the flood now of people returning. And so then the question is, how do you get a real hold of this? And what the president decided to is take a wounded soldier, decorated general, and put him in charge. And he's made some progress on some of these things. But I can tell you, I'm very disturbed about what I heard out of Phoenix, and that's why the next day I called for investigation of the whole region, because people may not know it, but Phoenix, Arizona, and Arizona itself, and New Mexico and Texas are all in the same region. And that suggested to me if there were problems in Phoenix, there could be problems here and there could be problems in Texas. So we asked to expand the investigation region-wide. And the next day, the secretary expanded it nationwide.
Right, that's right.
And then we took 2 very decisive actions in the Appropriations Committee that I just want to tell you about, and then we can continue the discussion here. First of all, we gave the Inspector General, because this is something that we know they're doing from Phoenix, and they've been out there for a while. We gave them $5 million extra dollars above what had been requested to do this investigation, and we suspended the bonus system that was in place. And it seemed to me that the bonus system was what was really causing the problems. It was providing incentives for people higher up to manipulate the system. And so those are the 2 decisive actions we took. We're trying to get to the bottom of this. We want accountability. And I can tell you, I mean, I'm glad I'm visiting with you now a few days later. I was steaming mad, and I believe that this is a betrayal of people who have served our country. We've got to get that agency functioning in a way that resolves these challenges and problems that I've identified.
Sure. The Inspector General is going to be going out to various locations and reporting out to your committee specifically, since you have oversight of this. What are you anticipating? Is there any way to anticipate and get ahead of the curve a little bit than the IG, or are you in a position just to lay back a little bit and just see what results?
Well, we have a couple of things going on. First of all, the Secretary, with the encouragement of the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, a young man I've known a long time by the name of Rob Neighbors, and I've reached out to him in a phone call. He is doing an audit for the Secretary that's separate from the Inspector General.
I see.
And so he's out. He's in Phoenix. I'm going to, when I talk to him, make sure that I put in a request that he come here, and I hope he goes to any place that he's heard there are any problems. But on top of that, the IG is very independent. Imagine the IG. You ask, how do you relate to it and what does it do? The IG is independent of the executive branch. They're the Inspector General. Things are turned over to them. They can ask the administration for things, and then they do their investigation. it's a very improper thing to interfere with an IG, for the administration to interfere, for the legislative branch to interfere. And so we need to wait until they come out with their information. But as I've told you, we already acted very decisively on one, giving them the money they needed so they couldn't say, well, you know, we don't have enough resources to do this. And secondly, suspending the bonus system until we really find out what's going on.
Right away, you put up on your senatorial website a way for veterans to weigh in with comments, their experiences. What's been, they're not public, you can't go there and read the responses, but the upshot for you, what's been the responses you've read these, any specific threads in Albuquerque specifically?
First of all, Gene, let me say that probably most of this is covered, if not all of it, under the Whistleblower Act. And so you have people within the agency who are fearful of their status, fearful of being fired, coming forward. And they felt comfortable doing it with my office, which I'm proud of that they've stepped forward like that. And so what we put up on my website was to say, let's let them step forward, and if they feel more comfortable going directly to the Inspector General, then they can do that, or if they want to come to us and we turn it over to the Inspector General. And so this is a case where we're protecting, Gene, their confidentiality. We're trying to protect their rights to be whistleblowers and to get the information out so the investigation can be done properly. I mean, the only way you discover these kinds of things in a big agency like this is to have people on the inside give you the initial tips, and then you can go around and look at documents and with the tips talk to other people and pull it all together, and that's what the IG's doing. And so as I've said, I would never interfere, but I think they need to be thorough and they need to be prompt, because we want to get these things fixed. I want the agency held accountable. If anybody's broken the law in the agency, they ought to be punished. I mean, this is something that I take very, very seriously. And as I've said, I mean, I feel that what's happened so far, and from what I've heard, that there are some serious problems, and this is a betrayal of our veterans.
Is it a fact, Senator, that perhaps this agency is bit of a wise guy here, too big to fix? And what I mean by that is the agency taking on too much? When you look at the amount of visits per year, it's an extraordinary amount of people that walk in the door of the VA. The VA started as a place for rehabilitation for the physical sense. Now the VA is doing a lot of work in, of course, the emotional sense of our soldiers coming back and traumatized. Is that an area perhaps we could split the two duties, where somebody else could handle one part, the VA stick to its mission of fixing bodies and helping guys survive after that?
And Gene, you've got a keen sense here. I mean, I think before you pursue a road that you're suggesting or looking at that kind of thing, you would need to have these reports out there and be able to see the Inspector General reports. These are people that many times have watched government for 10, 20 years, sometimes 25 years in their positions. And they discover the kinds of things you're talking about. They discover whether you're mixing two things that don't mix well, whether you should spin something off. I mean, one of the issues right now, and you've really raised this in a way, is with the flood of people back. You have an agency that has a huge amount to do. With the flood back, do you find a way temporarily to make sure every veteran gets an appointment within a reasonable amount of time? Say, 30 days or what I don't know, and don't lock me in on the exact time, but that, and if it's something critical, you should get it immediately. But they get their appointments. And if they don't, then you could have some backup in the private sector. I mean, maybe what we need to know is this an overflooding of the VA of these brave heroes returning from Afghanistan and Iraq, and the system not being able to support it, and maybe we're better off getting out in the private sector. So I don't think we can make a judgment on these things until we get further down the road and we see the IG report. And then Congress continues to do its oversight. I can tell you the subcommittee I'm on, the Appropriations Subcommittee, Subcommittee for Veterans Affairs, we're going to do oversight on this. We've already done oversight on the backlogs on disability. We had both the Secretary for Veterans Affairs and the Secretary for Defense in front of us saying the backlog's unacceptable. Get it down. What do you need to get it down? And they've actually moved significantly in the last couple of years to cut it in half. But there's still way too big of a backlog.
Sure.
Way too big of a backlog.
In that context, Senator, when you think about the amount of money the agency has received since 9/11, an extraordinary amount of money, actually, as both a percentage and a sheer amount. 5 years for Mr. Shinseki to kind of get his arms around this a little bit. Should we be a little bit further down the road, given the money and the resources that the administration has put into the VA, just as the administration promised they would, right from the top? Where should we be now?
I think we should be further down the road.
Okay.
And
is there one specific thing you can think of?
And I'm unhappy where we are. I wish and I hope that by now we would have this backlog thing resolved.
Right.
I mean, you arrive home as a vet, and you may have post-traumatic stress syndrome. You may have had an arm or a leg blown off. You're entitled to disability. There's no reason you should wait a year or more to get the disability rating to begin to get your disability and your disability payments. And so that I'm very unhappy with. And as I've said, we have used our subcommittee to do the oversight, tell the top agency people, this is unacceptable. Take care of this. Tell us what you need. And we're going to continue to have those kinds of discussions. But you're absolutely right. I mean, the tough questions like you're asking, we need to be asking every day, and we are.
Particularly rural veterans. You had a bill out in February, particularly addressing this problem. I think it would surprise a lot of people how many of our veterans here in New Mexico live in rural areas as opposed to Santa Fe and Albuquerque. What are the particular challenges, New Mexico rural veterans specifically, that you're trying to address, not just with that bill, but fixing of the VA as well? Because if you think about men and women trying to come in from huge distances to the VA here in Albuquerque, not getting their appointments, it just adds up to a big mess after a while.
Yeah.
What are the challenges for our rural veterans as well?
One of the big challenges is transportation.
Okay.
You can imagine, especially when you're talking World War II and some of the older veterans, if they have to travel to Albuquerque from Raton or Las Cruces or Carlsbad or hours and hours away, what you're really talking about is probably a family member or friend giving up an entire day, doing the driving, doing the driving back, and
sometimes weekly.
Yeah, and sometimes you have overnights. Sometimes you have to be there early in the morning. It doesn't make sense to get up that early, so you come in the night before. All of these kinds of things. So one of the things the bill does is try to tackle the transportation networks. We have some very courageous veterans stepping forward and volunteering to drive and doing things. We need, and we have dollars for the access, but those need to be utilized better, and we need to do better by our rural veterans. Now one of the areas that we've done very well in, and this is on medical records all across rural and urban. We've put those into computers, and so there is a completely computerized medical system within the VA. You could go to a lot of other places, doctors' offices, and they don't have that, and so they've really pushed that along. And let me mention one more thing.
Please.
Telemedicine. One of the secrets here to really moving forward and giving them the very best care in their hometowns is having the ability for those clinics out in the rural areas to get on the screen and through the internet provide service. I sat with a doctor the other day. This wasn't a veterans doctor, but he was an expert in his field, and he had on the screen 20 different locations around the state of New Mexico, and in a 2-hour period, he was able to consult with the various providers there in his specialty and give specific advice as to what to do. So obviously those people didn't need to travel from these areas into the central location. That is key, and we're
Yeah.
trying to push the envelope on telemedicine.
Sure.
Now, obviously, if you're going to get a surgery and it's specialized, you're going to have to come to the
Right.
VA. But
Yeah.
there are a lot of things that can be done out there, and you don't have to travel.
Is there money in your legislation to help out with that for telehealth?
There's money in our legislation, and we're pushing the envelope on that. And there's a lot of money in the system that we've been pushing at telemedicine. And this is something that is working in the VA. It's also something that we're trying to do with the Indian Health Service and other medical operations around the state, because you have the opportunity there to bring this top-notch care right into rural areas.
UNL's been
And
doing
we
some
need
great
to
work
do it.
on that, sure,
Now,
yeah.
now one of the big problems, though, if you don't have internet,
Right.
and so that comes back to one of the themes that we'll probably talk about at some point of economic development and how to get everybody interconnected and how to build the basis and the backbone to the community in order to move forward with their economic activity.
Absolutely. Senator Udall, thank you very much for talking about the VA. It's been a big issue for us over here. We're going to continue to cover it, and we really appreciate you spending some time and helping us out.
Absolutely. And let me just say, Gene, I really appreciate the scrutiny that the press has given this, because a lot of times where you have an agency that has serious problems, they don't get the attention sometimes, and as the media starts looking at it, people start opening up. People within the system say, oh, this looks like something's going to happen now finally. Right. Maybe I should be willing to either talk to the media, talk to the IG, report through Senator Udall's office to the Inspector General, and maybe we can get to the bottom of this and get it fixed. That's where I'm coming from. Let's get it fixed. Let's get it fixed, and let's get it fixed as quickly as we can.
When the report comes out later this summer, please, if you have time, please stop back, and we'd love to have a look at that too.
I'd love to do that.
Absolutely.
I'd love to do that.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay,
Appreciate
it's
it.
a pleasure.
You got it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.